hard times, baby, but I ain't ever seen this before. Seen hard times, baby, but I ain't ever seen this before. It feels like the wolf is at the door. I ask you, brother, what are you gonna do when they come around and they're looking for you? I'm telling you, ain't gonna be anywhere to hide anymore. The bad man's coming, baby, and he's looking to even the score. I tell you something, it's as plain as day. You can't let these people get away with what they're trying to do, baby. It ain't no good for me and you. Sometimes I wake up and I don't know what to do. Seen bad times, baby, but I ain't ever seen this before. Seen bad times, baby, but I ain't ever seen this before. It feels like the wolf is at the door. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Noel Casler podcast, episode 125. Been doing this for a while. Thanks for indulging me, and let's get to it. That was an improv song. I'm sorry I abused your ears with my singing voice, but those were the words that were coming out on this beautiful late winter morning. It's sunny out here. It's 55 degrees almost. My neighbor's got his leaf blower out, so it's spring is coming when the MAGA dudes start bringing out the gas-powered lawn stuff. I wish people would get hip to climate change, but I guess we're past caring about that stuff. Now we just got to try to not invade Canada. Things are getting crazy. That's pretty obvious, right? Understatement of the year. Again, I'm sorry I haven't done more of these. I'm writing Substack, and if you like this podcast, I would encourage you to sign up for that. I'm still working very hard on that stuff. And, I wanted to connect with you guys because it is the anniversary of the show. It's been 4 years. I got a lot of loyal listeners. I love and appreciate all you guys. All you folks have bought, T-shirts and come out to live shows and leave me nice comments and watch it on YouTube. Don't think for a second that I don't appreciate you. And if I can offer you any comfort in these times, then I will show up and do it when I can. But man, is this a lot. And I'm paying attention to this stuff all day, every day. I wish I wasn't so compulsive about the news, but how can you not be? Because I worry so much, not just, the future of this country, but, the future of democracy as a whole. Because what these guys are trying to do is a global thing. This is no longer just an American story. This is a European story. This is an Asian story. This is a global South story. You name it. There's nowhere that's not going to be affected by what they're trying to do. And they're trying to carve up the world. They're trying to create a multipolar reality where it's Russia, China, and the United States. And those are the three countries in charge. And we're no longer a beacon of democracy. We're just a grifter's paradise like Russia, an oligarchy, a kleptocracy, whatever you want to call it. It's going to be to borrow the parlance of Elon Musk. It's going to be a Ponzi scheme, all right, but, there won't be any hope of anything trickling down. It'll be the guy at the top who gets a cut, and then you do whatever the heck you want. And if you need some resources, you dial up your buddy Trump, and, he invades somewhere that might help your business. That's it. That's where we're at, man. And like everybody else, I'm in a state of shock, like my Canadian friends and our neighbors to the north, and our neighbors to the south. We're abusing our family members, right? We're all one landmass. This is North America, and you don't turn and start like throwing shit at your neighbor's house, right? But that's what Trump is doing because he's an idiot. And when they told him they were going to carve this place up, I guarantee you somebody pulled out a globe and he saw the landmass, that is Canada, going all the way up to, over the North Pole to Greenland, right? So he saw all that land. And he was like, wow, that'll truly make America great. If I was the president to make that all one big chunk of space, wouldn't that be grand? And that might sound crazy, but that's how stupid the guy is, right? Like, you could manipulate him by showing him that. And I'm sure that's what Elon Musk did. And I read this article the other day about how Elon Musk's dad was part of this separatist group that sort of wanted U.S. and Canada and Greenland to all be one kind of giant, like, white paradise country. So I guarantee you that's what they have in mind. They're obviously not going to get through Canada. I don't think he's joking. I know I have a lot of Canadian listeners. It's not just a joke. He's not just, taking the piss out of you. He wants to invade you. He wants to destroy you and weaken you and then make you so desperate that you have to, pay for his protection, so to speak. It's a mob move, and he can't get away with it. You got to fight him as hard as you can, and you know that. I don't have to tell you that. I've traveled in Canada from one end to the other. I've been from Vancouver Island to Nova Scotia, out to St. John's, Newfoundland. I love the Canadian people. I don't think I met a single asshole crossing that country, and I was like a tour manager, road manager. I was settling hotel bills. I was doing all kinds of things where it can be a pretty antagonistic job, right? You're dealing with promoters locally and, all kinds of stuff, stagehands. And there's a lot of conflicts that come up in the course of touring, and they never happened in Canada because everybody was so polite, and competent. It was just really a pleasure. And so, like, why? And I'm not saying there's not assholes in Canada. There are. You got Pierre Poliver. You got the same stuff that's happening up here. But by and large, that's a people that have their shit together, and they've always been there for us. They've fought alongside us in every conflict we've ever been in. They've never resented us in the way that a lot of countries would resent a place like America being to the south of us. They've always embraced our bands, our culture. They never pushed back on any of it. They didn't shove their own stuff down our throat. Take it or leave it. And a lot of it was far superior to the crap that we were consuming down here. Hello, Tragically Hip. You know what I mean? Even Rush, an iconic progressive band. How did we treat them in America? We made fun of them. The critics didn't like them, blah, blah, blah. If you're my age, you grew up listening to that, and it made you more sophisticated, That was like heavy metal music, but their songs like made references to Thomas Wolfe novels, Absalom, and today's Tom Sawyer. They were giving us back our literature through the lyrics. So when you were like a mindless little stoner kid playing air drums, the lyrics that were going into your head were literature, thanks to Neil Peart and his, voracious reading. And I used to transcribe Rush songs like Red Barchetta and stuff. I would write out the lyrics, and even before I read a lot of books, that was like putting smart words in my head in a way and making me think about conceptual things. And the Hip did that too. Gord Downey's literature, man. That guy was like, he'd make you want to pick up a book and read and get smarter, and that's in Gordon Lightfoot is one of my all-time heroes. And I met Gordon and worked with him. And, when he was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, I saw him on his last tour. I had tickets to see him one more time on that tour. I had to give him up to go do a benefit for Adam Schiff out in L.A., but not that they needed me to do that, but they invited me, so I went. And I miss seeing Gord, but the last time I saw him, it was incredible. The ultimate troubadour. And he needed an air tank, for his encore. He had to go off stage and like have a little oxygen. And he came back on like wheeling an oxygen tank and still sang. And that guy's just an incredible songwriter. And again, like smart literature. Neil Young, literature. Joni Mitchell, beyond literature. I don't even know what that kind of genius is. How you label whatever she tapped into. But we're a better place for it, right? My musical hero's the band. I lived in Rick Danko's old house in Woodstock, a house he rented. I knew Levon. I met Robbie Robertson a bunch of times. I was up in Toronto with Jackson Browne, and I remember he was like, call Robbie Robertson for me, like, get me this number or something. I forget, invite him to the show or some kind of thing. I remember like in a hotel room at the Hotel Eddie in Toronto, like having to leave a message to Robbie Robertson's assistant that there was going to be like tickets for him at Massey Hall or something. And I'd already met Robbie, but that's an honor. And again, literature, right? Like, I don't know why that theme is coming up, but it's a nation that knows who it is, and you discover that by a sort of like steady intellectualism, right? And that's what Canadians have, right? Even when they're pissed off, they're pretty measured in their words, and that's not to say they need to be, that's not to underestimate them, as we're now seeing. And that's a together country, right? That's what Gord Downie showed us. That was the gift that he gave his country, on that last tour in 2016. And the fates probably had it be no accident that was the same year that Donald Trump came to power down here in the U.S. And how did Canadians react to the Hips final tour, to Gord Downie, to the final concert? They came out in mass all over the country, all the way up to the territories, everywhere. People came out in parks and outside of, concert halls, and they sat outside. They sat in parties in their living rooms. They sat, practically at the North Pole, and they watched a live stream, and they sang together, and they cried together. It chokes me up. I've talked about that so many times on Canadian podcasts or whatever, on my own. I get choked up every time I think about that moment, because there's something in there that is the best of humanity. When we come together and we realize that we're all one, that our lives are all intertwined, and we all sort of want the same things, and we laugh together and cry together and dance together, and we take care of each other and the land and the creatures upon it, as a community, and we respect each other's cultures, then we have this magical thing that feels good. And if you're alive, you can feel that vibe, and you can change, not all of these, nations that were, colonized. Like, we all have some bad shit in our past that we have to, make right. And Gord Downie was the kind of artist who was brave enough to do that, Channy Wenjack, the foundation that he started. I might have gotten Charlie Wenjack. I forget his native name, but you know what I'm talking about. The three people who know what I'm talking about. That's what he spent the last couple of years focusing on. First Nations, making it right, letting people know what went down so you don't have to go through it again. And down here on this side of the border, we have the opposite of that. We got guys who are ripping textbooks out of classrooms. They're ripping it out of our institutions. The whole anti-DEI thing that's happening in the federal government, they're erasing heroes, out of our history books and out of our government, databases. They're taking their pictures off the walls. Heroes, Arlington Cemetery, they just took down any reference to like women and blacks and stuff that were buried as war heroes. Like, they're trying to do all they can do to inject the lie of this sort of mediocre white supremacist Christian MAGA, douche bro is the only person who can ever do anything good in the world. A Pete Hegseth type or an Elon Musk. Elon might be the worst thing Canada gave us, because that's where his dad was originally from. He was attracted to the racial policies of South Africa, so he moved his family there because he was a racist. Elon, moved back to Canada to live with some family member in Saskatchewan, and eventually lied about his immigration, made his way down to Penn, was a mediocre student, made it out to Silicon Valley, was an early investor in Facebook, pretended like he was a tech genius because he made a lot of money, and then he bought Tesla and took credit for it, and we know the rest. And it was obvious who this guy was from the beginning. I've been dissing on that dude forever, as you know, if you've been listening to this for a long time. I was infuriated when they put him on SNL because he was clearly a Bond villain, you know. Anybody who's building cars in a non-union plant in the United States of America is not your friend, okay? If you're not a friend to labor in manufacturing, you're not somebody who's got the best interest of the people at heart. You're an industrialist, and a techno-bro, racist industrialist is the worst kind of villain. And now he's been invited into our government. He's dismantling the government. You know, before our eyes, a bunch of 19-year-olds are taking it apart. And nothing like this has ever happened before. The Soviet Union fought a Cold War against us for fucking 70 years, and they haven't made the progress that they've made in the last 6 weeks thanks to Donald Trump. You know, it's maddening. It's simply maddening. I don't want to stop. I'm just going to keep going. I'm trying to get the audio right. I don't have anybody, I don't have an engineer or anything, so it's just me making adjustments as I go. I apologize to the 30 people that still listen to this. But, you know, this is why I'm not doing them a lot. I just don't even want to get in on these rants. Maybe this should just be like a checking in and saying hi kind of thing. I don't need to do an hour right now. But, you know what's going on. And what are you going to do about it? You know, lots of people are taking to the streets. Lots of people are showing up at town halls. Keep doing that. That's exactly what you want to do. I know a lot of people that sort of slept through the first Trump era. How bad can it be? I don't really get involved with politics, whatever. They're all the same. I saw 1,000 different excuses by 1,000 different, privileged people that I know. And this is where we're at. This is why it's always mattered. And now it's at such a critical point that I think people are pulling their hair out and they're finally freaking out. And good, you should be. And it's probably almost too late, but it's not too late. And you keep fighting to the end. And you don't go to the second location, right? I learned that on Oprah. If you get kidnapped or abducted by a serial killer and they throw you in the trunk, you don't want to go to the place they're taking you to when you get out of the trunk, right? And that's what Trump is doing. He's got us in the trunk right now, and they're taking us to a field, and they're going to pull us out and walk us out into the marsh, and you don't want to let that happen to your federal government because people sacrificed for generations to build up what we have. And Elon just brought in another dude, his longtime friend from Silicon Valley, an investor, a private equity guy. To assign him to Social Security. That guy's going to do everything he can to privatize it, and to sort of cull the roles of recipients, and make it as hard as it can possibly be for people to claim their benefits, which is what they tried to do this week. They tried to make it like you had to do it only online. Saying that to elderly people who rely on these checks and people with disabilities. They can't get to an office or do it online. Those were your two options. People receiving these checks, they're in rural areas, they don't have cars. Take you half a day to take public transportation if you could even get it. And if you have a disability, that's not even an option. You should be able to call up, press a few things on the phone like you're claiming unemployment, hang up and get your check. That's your right as an American. That's got nothing to do with Elon Musk or Donald Trump or any of these guys. And that's something we have to fight for. That's something we have to take to the streets to protect. And we're going to have to. We're going to have to, we're going to have to protest. We're going to have a lot of civil disobedience. We're going to have to stand up to them at every turn. We're going to have to stand up to them in Congress. You don't go along with them. You don't pull a Chuck Schumer and just say, well, it'll be worse if they shut down the government. You got to give the people something. You got to use your powers to protest in any way you can, because nothing is functioning now. And this play nice, or we might need Trump voters, stop calling them morons, we're going to need them. Hey, I've said all along, one-on-one, these people are fine. But as a voting bloc, they are morons. If you voted for this guy the third time after January 6th, you're an idiot. You don't deserve my respect. I got as much affection for you as I do some dog shit I'm scraping off my shoe. And I'll do everything to protect your future and your kids' future and your families, because your futures are on the line just as much as ours are. This is not an us-them thing, but I'll call you a moron. I'll call you a fucking idiot for voting for him, because you are. You know, and a lot of those people get offended and they're like, well, why can't you just respect our point of view? Hate is not a point of view. It's a defect of character. It's a sin. Okay. This isn't old school conservatism versus progressivism. This is fascism. You were either too stupid or too misinformed to understand what you were pulling the lever for, or you looked at it all and you liked it. But either way, you made a mistake that is going to hurt this country for generations, and it threatens the life of this planet, because this guy doesn't believe in climate change. And if you think climate change is a hoax too, then you are a moron. There's no excuse for it. That's not a point of view. You know, that's being a dumbass and believing propaganda over science because you're stupid and you like a culture that rewards gas-powered douchebag toys like giant pickup trucks and leaf blowers. Sorry, my neighbor's got 4 of them running right now. It's the first warm day of the year. And that's what happens, you know. The leaf blowers come out. Right? Oh, it's nice out. I better go kill shit. I better go pollute the air and fucking use a leaf blower because there's some leaves that have piled up on my yard over the winter. You know, you got to do lawn maintenance, but I got an obsessive guy next door, and it's just every day. It's like the guy doesn't feel alive unless he's using something that is gas powered, that has an engine on it. And that's like a, you know, that there's this towny mentality. And I'm not talking living in the woods, rural craftsman type. I love that kind of stuff. I love authentic woodsy kind of stuff. But there's this idea about dominating nature that a lot of white suburban and ex-urban males get. You know, the type that mow their lawn within a quarter of an inch and think climate change is all a joke and like words like hemi, you know, and all this kind of stuff. You know the type. It's the Trump type. That's who he appeals to. You know, that and cops and firemen, townies, construction workers, you know, idiots. I listened to a couple idiots. I was in an antique store the other day, and this old guy, Trump voter guy, was like, yeah, they found somebody who was 150 years old getting Social Security. First of all, that's not true, right? And the lady was like, yeah, I know, it's crazy. I'm glad what they're doing. This is big. This is going to really benefit us a lot. This is huge. Like, they're all for this because they're buying the propaganda. If you have 4 cars that are broken down in your front lawn and your house is falling apart, you couldn't afford to vote for Donald Trump. And that's what I see in this region. I drive up to this antique store, and it's like, you know, it's like it's a part of New York State you don't think of when you think of New York State, and it's very, like, shocking how dilapidated it is. You know, it feels like Appalachia. It's like really like a kind of poverty that wasn't here 30 years ago, and that's sad and tragic, and there's a lot of blame to go around for that. You know, those people were overlooked by Obama and Clinton and stuff. We left too many people behind, and you get very detached to that, living in the cities, or, you know, the sort of liberal elitism that the party morphed into in many quarters. That's a real grievance. You can't let people get to that point, because then they become susceptible to con men like Trump and Fox News and all this podcast, you know, right-wing rhetoric. Because then it's real easy to roll in and say, you know, the reason you're so poor is because immigrants and Mexicans and these communist liberals giving all your money away, right? So that people are like, yeah, all right, that sounds good. I vote for you. You make it right. Hell yeah, you do. I'll make America great again. And that's what he tells them. And he's also got all the theatrics and the toxic iconography and the fake assassination attempts and everything else to get them going. And they believe in it, you know? And they've been primed, and they go to the voting booth and they vote for this guy, and he gets elected, and he screws them harder than they've ever been screwed before. And most of them are probably still too stupid to realize it, but they're going to find out soon. Because the checks are going to stop coming, and the infrastructure is going to start crumbling, and the, you know, troops are going to start getting sent to places where we want the resources, like Elon wanting stuff up in Canada and the Panama Canal in Greenland. And then it's going to be a mess, and they're going to be cannon fodder. They're going to be peasants and serfs, and he's going to crack down on them, and he's going to try to, you know, bring in private militias to keep the peace and crack down on protesters. He's going to do all this and more. And if you've been listening to this podcast, you're not surprised to hear me say this, and you probably know it's not hyperbole at this point. This is what I was talking about. This is where we are. And we have to come together and get real serious. Not about we're not going to vote him out this time. You're going to have to disrupt it. You're going to have to stop it somehow. You're going to have to impeach him now. You're going to have to tell your MAGA neighbor who you just want to respect their point of opinion, hey, this is wrong. What you're doing is promoting hate. It's hurting other people. I won't accept it. You're not invited to the barbecue, dude. I'm not going to your kid's fucking softball game if you're going to continue to attack trans people or support a policy, that does. I don't respect you for that. You need to educate yourself because you don't have a right to hurt other people, disabled people, immigrants, who also, by the way, work really much, work harder than I see you work. Every kind of Trump contractor dude I've ever done business with shows up in a shiny pickup truck, gives you an estimate, walks around the house once, leaves, you send him a check, and then what happens? A less nice pickup truck pulls up a few days later with a bunch of immigrants, and they work their asses off and do an amazing, skillful job. And they probably get a fraction of what you paid the white guy with a pot belly who pulled into your driveway. That's the business. And that was a good thing for these guys. And they voted against that too. They want to deport all these people that are working hard. They want to treat them like prisoners. That's a violation of human rights. And we see what they're doing at Colombia, taking some dude away who's got a green card, who's married to a pregnant woman. He's married to an American citizen, taking away birthright citizenship because they don't like somebody's politics. That's not America. I might disagree with your politics. I don't want to see you thrown in jail. And what he's done to the Justice Department and stuff, I can't get into all of that and the ramifications of it now. But you can imagine, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, there is no rule of law, attacking law firms, Perkins Coie in D.C. I used to deliver to them all the time when I was a bike messenger, an institution in D.C., Georgetown Law. They're going after Georgetown Law and trying to cut funding because they don't want any kind of progressive intellectualism to exist. They don't want anybody educated enough to bring a case to the Supreme Court that might challenge their hold on power. That's what this is about. They're destroying any ability to oppose them. That's what Putin did. That's what Viktor Orban did. And that's exactly what Trump is doing. That's the playbook. That's Project 2025. And they're dismantling the government. The only difference is originally they said they were going to replace the federal workers with MAGA loyalists. There's no replacing now. They're just getting rid of everybody. They're just outright destroying the EPA, the Department of Education, USAID. The list goes on. And the reverberations are going to, affect the quality of life on this planet for generations. There's already been so much damage done that it would be hard to recover from, and not lose a lot of lives. People are already going to die from what he's doing. It's up to us to realize we're sort of in a war against this stuff, and we have to do all we can to have all hands on deck to stop it. That's it. And you do that by taking good care of yourself, by not becoming overwhelmed by this stuff, by self-care, by digging into all the spiritual help you need. I'm in recovery, as you guys know. Double up on the meetings. Share your feelings. We don't talk politics in the rooms, but people, find a like-minded group. And, this is almost beyond politics, right? This is like human rights. You got to figure a way to deal with this. There's a guy named Anthony DeMello I've talked about before. He was a Jesuit priest. He did a book called The Way to Love and a bunch of videos that you can find on YouTube. And he talks about letting go of attachments. Enlightenment is not adding to things, it's letting things fall away. And we're in a time where that's what we need to do. We need to let our conditioning fall away and let the bullshit fall away and really focus on the big picture, on what's happening here, what their true motivation is, and what is our ability to stop them. Where is our power, and how do we use it and leverage it to make a difference, right? That's why awareness of the cultural situation is what I've always tried to focus on in this show, because that's what you're really going up against. The facts and stuff, they don't really get through, especially on social media, because the right wing owns social media. And as much as it feels good to be on there and ranting and whatever, and I do it as much as anybody, it's not really making a big difference when Elon Musk owns the thing, owns the site, or Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos owns the newspaper. Like, they're controlling that narrative and the algorithm, and their strength in that department is only going to grow. You're not going to catch up to them, right? So what you need to do is identify the areas in your day-to-day life where you do have contact points with MAGA folks, and where is there an opening to explain why you care for the planet, why these storms that are hitting everybody now are caused by fossil fuels and a warming planet. When you get somebody spewing some ignorance like, it's just a hoax, say, no, ma'am, it's not just a hoax. It's reality. It's science. Just like, airborne diseases are reality. Just like measles can be prevented with vaccines, but you guys stopped taking them, and now there's an epidemic of measles in a bunch of states, not just Texas. It all starts in Texas, right, with this stuff, but it spreads. And we can't afford another global pandemic, especially since he's, basically dismantled our ability to fight one, and he's got Dr. Oz up on Capitol Hill today. It's going to be ahead of our, Medicaid. He had some whack job at the CDC who was trying to, sneak through yesterday, and they realized it wasn't going to work, so they pulled him, and they'll try to get somebody else. But the end game is to destroy our ability to deal with a global pandemic. And that's the part that's hard to understand, because you're like, why would they be doing all this? They have to live here too. But they live in a separate world. Trump gets on a 757 when he's not getting on Air Force One, and he has for 30 years, right? He gets on his own giant, airliner and flies down to Palm Beach every weekend and plays golf in a private club surrounded by other billionaires, many of them from overseas, who tell him what to do and what he wants. He doesn't see the rest of America. They're not driving through Cancer Alley in Louisiana where all your petrochemicals are getting processed. There's a woman on MSNBC did a great reporting on it the other night. She was a host. I can't think of her name right now, but she's doing like a podcast, and she did a great deep dive on a town where people have been dying for generations because of the chemicals that are released into the air every day. That's what this stuff does, this kind of industry, and that's why we had an EPA to regulate it. And an EPA was like, they could barely keep up, and half the time they would let the polluter themselves write the rules, right? It was always the case, but at least there was like lip service to addressing these issues. Once that's all taken away, industry does whatever it wants. They pump any kind of chemical they want into our waters, in our oceans, in our air, and we die, And they don't give a shit, because they're not living in our reality. They're living in a penthouse in New York City, or they're flying off to Palm Beach, and they're stupid, greedy people. They're already compromised and messed up, because anybody with a heart and a brain wouldn't want to do that anyway. Most spiritually healthy people, you make a certain amount of money, and you're like, I'm good. What can I give back? These people, they never want to give back. They just want more and more and more, because it's power. Right? I want to have a big rocket and I want to send it into space. And then you get a real weirdo in there. Like, they're all weirdos, right? Bezos, Zuckerberg, Musk. These are dorks. And they're not even like brainiac dorks like a Bill Gates. They're just fucking dorks who want to be cool guys, which is a lot of the appeal of MAGA and UFC and Joe Rogan. It's a little spark plug. Dude's like 5'2". I'm only 5'7". So, I'm one to talk, but, this toxically, I'm a tough guy, you're a fucking idiot. Real men take care of people that are vulnerable. They look out for those around them. Real tough guys don't brag about it. They don't have screaming eagle tattoos and guns and stupid pickup trucks and all this crap. They keep their mouths shut unless you mess with them. They do the right thing. Canada, back to Canada. There's a lot in the Canadian personality because, it's more recently sort of European. It's like Australia, Canada, Australia, any of these places where like there was a certain attitude that came from England. Obviously, we're formed that way too, but we were kind of like the freaky puritanical ones that just wanted this weird religion shit, so we came here. You think of the guys that went to Australia and stuff and Canada, and they're some of the toughest people on the planet, and they don't complain, they don't brag a lot. If you meet an Australian, these guys are tough as nails, and they don't talk about it. When they had a mass shooting, they got rid of the guns. They got rid of the guns, and they weren't like, oh, I'm not going to be safe now, I'm scared in my house. They're like, oh yeah, let's get rid of this shit. They don't have to drive a big pickup truck to feel cool or whatever. Same with British dudes. Drive a little car, save the planet. Don't use more than you need. And part of our problem with America is we're so vast and so huge and blessed with so much natural resource and ability to really like live like there is no tomorrow. We had 5-cent gas, 15-cent gas or whatever. When I was a kid in the 70s, my mom would drive these gas guzzlers, man, Plymouth Furies, like these just crazy cars, leaded gas. We did all this stuff that was absolutely fucking insane. When you look back on it now, like, how long do you think this is going to last? But the problem is we've known it's a problem for a long time, and we haven't changed our behavior, especially towards the environment, and the rest of the world has. And they've given us, a lot of politeness in that regard, a lot more than we deserved, frankly, in my opinion. People should have been, biting our ass a long time ago over consumption. But they were all trying to, be diplomatic and ease us to the table, and we were a leader and provided a lot of, funds around the world and stuff, so nobody wanted to piss us off, and they gave us the benefit of the doubt. And how did that work out? We're seeing that now. We turned around and said F you anyway, and we're screwing over the world because we elected the stupidest human who has ever lived again. And now the world is going to pay a price because of our stupidity. And obviously not all of us, but I'm speaking as a generalization, because if you lived here in this country, the Trump voters were living alongside of you. There's nowhere that you didn't deal with any of them, and I didn't know this was happening because they're on the Upper East Side. Go talk to a fireman or a doorman or something, and you're going to meet a Trump voter. And that's, I don't know what to say about that I haven't said before. I've explained how it's a cultural thing, and a lot of us just look the other way and has sort of accepted a mild, casual racism and xenophobia and bigotry in our society. And that was a mistake, because we never reached the enlightenment in that regard that we needed to reach. We never did the fourth step, as I've said. We never really did a proper accounting and inventory of our moral failings and attempted to make it right so we could learn and grow and hold our heads up high. We failed to do that, thinking it would somehow just work out for the best. And it's kind of cute. They still have the Dixie flags down in the South. And yeah, they're kind of racist, but whatever. They write good books, No, man. We needed to get in there. We needed the war on poverty to be the war on ignorance. And the war on poverty obviously went away too. Thanks Nixon, thanks Republicans, and thanks Reagan obviously, and now Trump is doing it again. Just canceled over $1 billion contract that bought produce from local farmers and gave them to food banks and school lunch programs. Right? Government funded. It helps out and subsidizes farmers and puts fresh food in people's bodies who need it, in children, in people who need to rely on food banks, which is much of America at this point. Medicaid, much of America. Most of the kids that are born in this country are born to a mother who's getting Medicaid for the hospital. There's nothing wrong with it. That's how you get health insurance. We don't have universal insurance, right? So you need the government to do something. We should have it taken care of for everybody. It should be a human right, period. It shouldn't be attached to your job. I'm going to the dentist on Monday. It's my birthday on Tuesday, by the way. But, so I'm treating myself to the dentist because I got to pay out of pocket for this crap because we don't have health insurance. I get a little bit of it paid for because I get insurance through the New York Exchange, which is Obamacare. It's ACA, and it's Medicaid half the time if I make more than $5,000 in a year. I pay out whatever it is, you know? That was the only time I got health insurance in my adult life, because I was a freelancer and you couldn't get health insurance working in production if you weren't in the union, you know? So when that law came about, I signed up for it, and I've paid a couple $100 a month for it ever since. You know, or the years I didn't work, I got it anyway. That's how it should be, especially for kids, you know, for anybody. You know, every time I go to the doctor and they have to do tests or whatever, half of it isn't paid for. And we all know what that's like. That's another episode. And we're allowing that to happen. We're the richest country on the planet in the history of humanity. And what did we do last year? We produced more oil than any other nation ever. You know, we didn't produce more insured human beings. We didn't produce more food. You know, we produced more oil. You know, something that's just going to make things worse in the end. You know, and we don't insure our citizens and we don't feed them. And now we got a guy who's got a whole bunch of supporters and followers and sycophants in Congress, and a crazy tech bro who acts like it's a game, who thinks it's cute and funny to screw people over. The Doge stuff and the, you know, haha, we're firing all these useless employees. We're writing emails and making them tell us what they did last week. Defiling and dehumanizing people who spend their lives, you know, and their institutional knowledge on behalf of the greater good. As I've said on a bunch of these shows, you know, I grew up in the Maryland area until I was like 13, 14, got an uncle who worked at the USDA. I've known these people. I used to work on Capitol Hill delivering packages to all the agencies all day long in the offices. There's people that have spent their lives in there that are experts on their particular brand of whatever they're doing on behalf of our country and making it run well. And they're now out on their asses and they're not being replaced. You're losing all that investment that we've had, that investment in sort of human knowledge and education and people who cared. It's the craziest thing in the world. You know, you would only do that if you wanted to destroy the country, and that's the plan. They're trying to kill it, and it's a big, huge thing. How do you kill it? You got to bring it down to its knees. You know, you got to cut it off at its knees. You got to wound it. It's like a big whale. You know, they got to throw a bunch of harpoons in it before they can pull it close enough to the ship that they can cut it up, you know, and destroy it, to use it for what, you know? For whales, they did it for fucking lamps, you know, for home heating oil. It's the dumbest thing ever. It's kind of the same thing now. What are they doing it now? To give a tax cut to billionaires, to people who are only taking, who don't pay taxes anyway, right? Like, it's not like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are spending a fortune on taxes as it is, right? Tesla didn't pay any taxes last year, right? But the billionaire supporters, the hedge fund bros, the people that hang out at Mar-a-Lago, that's their deal. We'll destroy it. The yahoos who voted for me won't know what hit them, and you'll get another big tax break. And it'll be great. And don't mind what I'm doing with MBS and Putin. We got a little side hustle going here. And all you kids that were protesting Free Palestine, it's going to be a casino now and a hotel. That's not a joke. He just appointed Zampoli, Paolo Zampoli or whatever. He was Trump's buddy who introduced him to Melania. He's the guy who rented Melania, because Melania was a dead ringer for, I think it was Berlusconi's wife, an Italian actress, and Trump was obsessed with her for years and kept trying to meet her and stuff, and she wanted nothing to do with him, and Paolo knew about this and found Melania and introduced them at a party and stuff. And obviously Trump went for it because she looked just like the other lady that he liked. So point in that is Paolo is a guy who knows what motivates Trump and how he thinks, and he knows the secrets of Trump and Melania and their particular arrangement. So whatever deal he wants to get done in Gaza, you can pretty much imagine Trump will give him a green light to do that. And that's insane. And that's how crazy these people are. That's what they're going to try to do. You know, be on guard, Canada, and you are, because this isn't a joke, and you don't deserve this, and I'm sorry, you know? And Mexico, you know, you've taken more abuse than any nation could that have served us and provided us the expertise and the labor and the culture and the, you know, the unwavering sort of optimism for a better life that we should be learning from. We should be looking at people coming across the desert to get a job as fucking heroes. Really? You want to work that bad? You know, you want to come here and make a life? Heck yeah, I'll find room for you. Bring your kids. I'll put them in a school. I'll feed them, and I'll make sure they get a world-class education. Imagine a country that did that. You know? Now, I'm not saying that has to happen willy-nilly, but we can organize that. We could rise to that challenge, right? To bring people in a humane way and allow them to rebuild this country that needs rebuilding. Because if you're acting like there's no room to put people up, you're tripping. Because half of these towns are empty, and there's going to be even worse. The government is pulling out of all of their real estate, you know, all over the country. Not all of it, but most of it. You know, they're canceling all these leases. The VA, you know, all these other agencies, HHS, they all have, you know, buildings all over the country. Social Security Administration, you know, there's all regional offices of our federal government all over this country, and they're closing those buildings. Somebody else isn't going to come along and rent them. If you're like me, you live in an area where you go down Main Street, every other, you know, storefront is vacant. It's like that in New York City. You know, what is it going to be like in Gary, Indiana? Right. So why not rebuild that stuff? Why not bring people in who want to work hard? Why not figure out a way to use our vast wealth as a nation to lift people up, to provide them housing and healthcare and education? Make them Americans. Let them take pride in their home, you know, and nurture them and learn from them. We'd be the baddest motherfuckers on the planet if we were smart, if we understood what is right in front of us. We could lead the world in trying to battle climate change. And if we could somehow tap into the angst and anger of all these Trump voters and let them know who's really screwing them over, that it is the oil companies, that it is the oligarchs and the billionaires and the Federalist Societies and the Koch brothers and the Mitch McConnells and all these guys that have been jerking their chains, that allowed a fucking two-bit con man like Donald Trump to come in and just take their balls, screw them up in a little mason jar and put them on a shelf, because that's what he did to you. You might feel like you're a tough guy, but you just gave away all your power, you know? And you could take it back. You could get him out of office. You could read a book. You could read a newspaper. You could get hip to some science, and you could understand what it really is we're facing in terms of climate change. And you could get on board to fight. And we need all hands on deck for that fight. And we could come up with innovative ways to rise to the challenge of what is in front of us. That's what America can do at its best. That's what created the greatest generation, who fought fascism, you know, who fought for liberty and freedom. And now people are willing to flush it down the toilet because some con man is telling them somebody else is going to come and screw them over. No, you're screwing yourself over, you know, and we need to change it. We need that innovation. We need human ingenuity, and we need cohesiveness. Because we do have bad actors in the world, and we're pretty close to being the bad guys right now. If I was, you know, if I was looking to the, you know, America for support right now, you're barking up the wrong tree, you know. We need to change. We need to change fast, and we need to realize where we are and how powerless we are over certain aspects of what's going on, namely the algorithm, the internet, the misinformation. It's like whoever lies the loudest wins these days, and it can't be that way. And I don't have all the answers. I don't know how we undo a lot of the damage that's been done to people's psyches. I know that social media is a big part of it, and I don't want to make that stuff any worse. And I know we're all kind of relying on it now, but it's a quandary. You know, we're in a very complex, difficult situation that no one person is going to have the answers for. But we all need to work together, because together we will find the answers. And my guess is if we can get out of our own way, if we can go beyond our own individual egos and resentments and sort of identities, you know, identifying Republican, Democrat, whatever it is, right? If we can tap into sort of a higher power, you know, to borrow something from AA, you know, we might find a wisdom that'll guide us. If we can get in the moment, we can realize all is well. The underlying truth in life is that all is well. The problem exists in us, right? It's our reaction to the problem, like Shakespeare said. He didn't say it. He said it better than that, But thinking makes it so. Nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so, right? It's your thoughts around something that creates the disturbance within our soul. It's not to say there aren't all kinds of bad stuff happening. There isn't. There is, right? But how we react to it determines our ability to do something about it, right? And when we react to everything in anger and lash out in anger, it doesn't make a great difference, When we sort of get out of our own way, sometimes there's a wisdom that comes through in the moment that somebody else can recognize, that can energize and change a situation in a way we might not have been able to anticipate before, if that makes any sense. It's like why yoga or prayer or meditation, these kind of things work, because for me, I get out of my head long enough, I stop obsessing on what I was obsessing on and reacting from my hurt and my anger, and I realize, like, oh, wait, I can do something about this from another angle that I didn't quite see. And that's different for everybody, but it's why I draw and paint and play music, because at a certain point, I'm going to get into a space where I'm going to connect with myself, my true self, like my being, my heart, that thing that's gratitude. That's what we need to tap into, because we're in this beautiful planet. It's a miracle. I'm watching birds outside all day, baby red-headed woodpeckers, and ants are coming out, and squirrels are eating. Deer will be here later. It's a beautiful world. Blue sky overhead. We have so much and so much to be grateful for, but we have so many problems, and we're moving so fast that we've forgotten the things that bring us together. If I had a religion, it would be like sunsets are my religion, and I'd want everybody to come out at night when the sun was going down, and I'd want to be like, are you good? Your kids get enough to eat? Everybody got a place to sleep? Good. Let's enjoy this, sleep under the stars, sleep under the moon, right? Because we're all sharing the same place, essentially, and we're all trying to take something from somebody else, and it's just the same thing repeating over and over again all throughout history. But now we have the tools where the stakes are so much higher, because everything we use to do these things destroys the planet. And we got morons happily destroying this planet because they think they're going to get on a rocket ship and go to another one. They're going to go live on Mars. Like, what are we even fucking talking about here? But if we come together and like when you go to a concert and you feel better when you're in that room and you're singing with everybody else and stuff, there's something there. There's something in community or church or whatever it is for you. Football game, it doesn't matter. That moment when you're in a crowd and you go beyond yourself and you're part of the greater good, and you're sort of celebrating something that, celebrates what humans can achieve. Whether it's artistic performance or athleticism, whatever it is. Go looking at a beautiful painting in a museum, something that makes you go, wow, man, that's amazing. Good for you. And I'm going to take that with me. I'm going to kick ass in my life this week because I feel a little better now. I was lucky to be here for this moment. That's what the Tragically Hip, that's what Gord Downey gave everybody on the final tour. Watch Long Time Running as a documentary about it, or watch the other doc they did on the Hip earlier this year I've talked about, but watch that final concert, listen to it, listen to how the crowd is reacting and singing, no dress rehearsal. This is our life. I'm not gonna do the injustice, but you know what I'm talking about. Ahead by a century. It's There we go. Sorry about your ears. Trying to press the buttons. I appreciate all you guys listening to me. I know it's usually pretty sloppy. So anyway, I was talking about that last concert and that feeling of all these people coming together as one, to say goodbye to Gord Downie, this hero, and a band that sort of gave Canada back itself in a way, right? Because they focused on Canada. It wasn't about making it in the U.S. And, part of their story was always like, oh, they never really made it in the U.S. Good. They did fine down here and sold out plenty of shows and plenty of records, but good. They didn't need to be another U.S. band. They were something bigger and better than that. They were a Canadian band, and they did it all in Canada, and they never changed who they were, and they gave back to Canada, and they were honest about who they were. That's a lot to celebrate. Good on Justin Trudeau. He was always a champion, and I think a friend of the band since they were all teenagers or something. He was an early, tragically hip fan. Anyway, I'll shut up. It's been a long episode. Well, it's actually not that long, but there's been a lot of dead air, so I'll get off it now. Anyway, thank you for listening. Stay strong. Don't let it all get to be too much. We're going to get through this together. It's that point in the winter where all my guitars need adjustments because of the heat. Or I just need it to get more humid. If you want to support the podcast or check out what I'm writing, you can check out Noel's notes on Substack. I also have a Patreon page where I'll put this up without any commercials. If you like it or share it on YouTube, that I guess helps too. But, everyone's getting enough information and podcasts and shit these days, I appreciate you listening, but just take care of yourselves. That's the best thing you can do, all right? Until next time, peace.